Hey everyone, this time on Tim Talks Audio, we go over how to time stretch your song. I was recently working with one of my students who had recorded a track, but when the vocalist came in, the vocalist actually asked for the song to be sped up just a little bit. I'm talking 2 or 3 beats per minute faster than the original recorded tempo. All of the multi-track recording was already done, but I told my student that there is a way to do it, and a way to do it that actually doesn't sound bad. If you're doing small increments like that, you can get away with it. If you're doing very large increments and really changing and stretching your audio or compressing it down, you can introduce a lot of artifacts, and that's gonna make your song and all of your recorded files not sound great. If it gets to that point, you're better off re-recording. But if you're just trying to stretch or compress by a couple beats per minute, you can do the following steps. So let's dive into the DAW and take a look at how to time stretch our songs. So here we are inside of our session, and just like my student had asked, let's say the vocalist came in and said, you know what, this is too fast or this is too slow. Can we actually change everything? Because sometimes if you're outsourcing your vocals, they'll be more comfortable with a slightly faster or slightly slower song. Of course, I told him that there is absolutely a way to do it, and for the small amount he was doing, it's easy to do. In this mix session that I have in front of me, I didn't know the BPM of the song itself. I could have used the tap to tempo by clicking on tempo down here at the beats for the song, but in this example, it doesn't really matter. So let's say that this song is 120 beats per minute, and everything sounds fine. But then our vocalist comes in and they want it maybe a little bit slower. So you want to change the tempo maybe down to, let's say, 115, making it just a little bit slower without changing the pitch of everything and making it sound a little detuned. You want to keep the integrity of the pitch of everything. You just want it to play back slower. This is actually really easy to do. When you go down here, you can change your session tempo. And you can see, because we haven't changed something else, it puts all of these spaces in, and it tries to lock the events to a certain specific time or beat within our song. So if we hit undo and put it back to the original, all my edits are here, there's no gaps, everything is fine. But what I'm going to show you is actually on this track right here. I'm going to open up the inspector by hitting F4 on my keyboard. And I know that this is a percussion track. This is actually, it's a snare track. So in the inspector up on top for tempo, it says follow. What I'm actually going to do is change this to time stretch. And so you may have seen it actually already happen. It already stretched our audio to 120 beats per minute. And I'm noticing that the file tempo is set to 122 beats per minute. So what we've done is we've slowed down this snare by 2 beats per minute because we've gone in and we have set our tempo to time stretch. If we do the same thing for this kick track up here, you can see that at the end, it stretched it out. I would have done this on a bounced track. This way it's a whole new file because some of our edits might be a little bit off here. So when you're going to do your time stretch, make sure it's continuous files. It'll work a bit better that way. Now we can do the same thing. Right now, the file itself is 122. Our session is 120. And now I want to change it to 115. And look at this snare track. It stretched all of those hits out to 115. You can see on the other snare tracks, because they are set to follow, that they didn't shift. In tempo, when you're set to follow, the start of the event will stay at its relative marker. So we've made our song longer and gone up to 115 beats per minute. That's why we now have these gaps where I have the edits in this song. It is keeping the relative start of that event in the same bar or beat. And because we've made it longer, we've increased the amount of time in that edit zone. So it actually shifted the event a little bit further away from the previous event, giving us these gaps. With anything else that is one continuous file in follow, it knows to start at 1. That's the beginning of our song. That's everything. But you can see in our kick tracks up on top, they are also set to follow, and that is giving us that shift. If I come up to the kick and I put it to don't follow, then it's ignoring the tempo changes that we were doing. So I'm gonna do a couple rounds of undo, make sure that this kick track is don't follow, and now I'm gonna adjust my tempo. So here's another perfect example. I'm gonna stretch these kick drums out. You can see the first track that is set to don't follow. So changing the tempo will not affect this track. Everything is exactly the way it was. The second one, which is set to follow, has my edits at the same relative start point, just later in time because we've made the song longer. And our snare track is following our tempo however we do it. Whenever I go way down, it's stretching it way out. And if I make the song faster, it's bringing that snare track in. When you're working with time stretch, another thing to check is actually underneath tempo, the time stretch algorithm. There are a few options in here. If you're doing something percussive, like drums, use the drum algorithm. If you're doing something like a guitar, bass, synthesizer, vocal, anything like that, go with either sound or solo. Solo is a monophonic format. So this is good for things that are mono. Not so great for like stereo keys or any stereo virtual instruments like that you've printed to an audio waveform. Don't use solo on a 2-track either. If you have a 2-track, just a stereo file, and you want to manipulate the length of that song, go with sound. This is for stereo files, but it also works with mono files. Then the last option is tape, and this actually does affect the pitch of the track you're working on. Almost like you went to the tape machine and just slowed it down. If you slowed it down, the pitch got lower because it was playing it back slower. If you sped it up, it then pitched everything up. And so that is what tape will do in the time stretch menu. It can be a relatively tedious task if you have to do something like this, to go into each track with the inspector open and check that it is set to time stretch and that your time stretch algorithm is properly selected. Like I said, drums for percussive things, sound or solo for more long drawn out audio waveforms. That's all for now. If you found anything informative, please like and share the video. For more, visit timflansbaum.com, and if you have a question, ask it in the comments and I'll answer it in a future video. Thanks for watching.